Greetings. This is Coach Jaki with Uzazi podcast. Today's podcast is titled Twos and Teens for toddlers and teenagers. I don't know people who enjoy getting injections. I know I don't. I also know that if I tense up when I'm being given an injection, I will feel more pain as the needle pushes its way through my tight muscles. So I have learned to try and relax when receiving an injection. I still feel the pain, but it is less when I don't tense up. Now you might be wondering what getting injections has to do with toddlers and teenagers, or even why I'm discussing the two in the same podcast. But tensing up before receiving an injection is similar to what many parents do when they think about their toddlers and teenagers. We have seen images of the terrible things that parents have to deal with when their children are two, and the term terrible twos sums it all up. Parents also exchange war stories about their battles with their teenagers, and they use this to explain everything that's going wrong in their relationship if their child is at this stage. In fact, we are primed to expect that these will be terrible stages. But why am I talking about 2-year-olds and 15-year-olds in the same podcast? In both phases, children challenge authority, push limits, and demand control and privacy for themselves. Under these circumstances, frustration tolerance, that's for both the children and the parents, is low. Relationships can get strained. Parents may feel pushed away, and they describe these stages of life as a time when some alien creature, seems to come in and take the place of their previously loving, cooperative child. The thing is, these phases serve important functions in our children's development, and if we change the stories we tell ourselves about these two stages, the twos and the teens, we can approach them with more confidence and, yes, less pain. Psychologists have identified specific tasks that human beings navigate as they grow and develop. Successfully mastering the skills in each stage or at each stage leads to healthy growth and development, whereas not doing so leads to issues that could impede healthy development. So toddlers around the age of 2 to 3 are tasked with developing independence and a sense of control over their bodies. So potty training is an important piece of this puzzle, much in the same way as learning to control elements in their environment. If the 2 to 3-year-old is able to develop a sense of their ability to regulate their body and to do things for themselves, they feel confident in their ability to do other things, and they develop a healthy sense of autonomy. But if the child is not able to, then shame and doubt in themselves and their abilities may result. So if your previously loving, snuggly, even-tempered little one starts refusing to comply with basic requests, and there is a major meltdown of nuclear proportions because mom or dad is dressing them in the sweater they don't want, know that these signs are that your child is beginning to develop a healthy sense of self, and they're exactly where they need to be. For teens, the task is to develop a strong sense of individual identity. Teens are trying to figure out who they are and what their place in the world, independent of others, should be. Establishing an identity for teens generally means defining what they are not, and usually that includes establishing beyond a shadow of doubt that they are not their parents. Sometimes the only way for them to declare that they are their own selves is to pull away from their parents. They may challenge expectations and rules, and it's not unusual to see a teen reject an activity or goal because they think that that is what their parents want for them and not what they want. The drive to figure out who they are, what they want, what they believe, and what matters to them is really an important element of this stage. Usually it means challenging conventions, testing out different identities until they find one that fits, and pushing against authority as they seek independence. It can lead to withdrawal, mood swings, and parents not being sure which child is going to show up at the table for dinner that day or on any particular day. So it's not to deny that these stages are hard for both parents and kids. The distancing that is necessary for independence and autonomy to develop can be painful. Parents and the children feel the loss keenly, and the undercurrents of conflict at these two stages usually contain the messages, "I want my child back," for parents, or "I'm feeling alone and scared," for their children. The behaviors might manifest differently. A toddler tantrum is very different from a teen tantrum, but the role of a parent remains the same. Just when your kids are pushing away, the hardest is when it is most important for you to reassure them that you're not going anywhere. You need to give them space to explore, but not withdraw from them. They can push and yell and pout and cry and withdraw. But if you can be a constant for them, if your parental love can be consistent, stable, and unconditional, then you help them have the confidence to navigate these important tasks, and you help them ensure that they will find their way back to you eventually. Question is, how can you do this? One way is by allowing them more choices and helping them accept the consequences of those choices. This can be as basic as letting the toddler choose which sweater to wear, as opposed to whether to wear a sweater at all, or the teen choosing when to do homework, as opposed to not doing it at all. Give them increasing autonomy over choices in their world that are age appropriate and that are not likely to have dire consequences. And that gives them a sense of having some control over their lives. Taking responsibility for own actions and decisiveness are two characteristics that parents list as important to develop in the children they are raising. And these two stages, twos and teens, provide the opportunity to allow these traits to develop. The second task for a parent is to avoid judging the choices of their children. Sometimes the children have to learn the hard way. So the teen who chooses to do homework late at night, falls asleep and doesn't finish, does not need to be scolded for choosing poorly. You don't have to stick with the story that if your teenager does something stupid, like staying up all night, then falling behind in their homework and getting detention at school, you're a bad parent. You can learn to go with the narrative that as they seek out their personal identity, they will do some silly things, but they must learn that their choices have consequences. So when they are, ask them, how did whatever they chose work for them? And if there's anything they would like to change, and offer to help instead of scolding them. This approach keeps open dialogue and conveys that you respect their ability to make good choices and helps reduce defensiveness while demonstrating to them that you are there to support them. It isn't easy. Often you're feeling hurt and scared and helpless as well. And sometimes the behavior of your twos and teens sets off triggers in you that result in your own, let me say, bad behavior, for want of a better phrase. So it is a good idea to reflect on what your relationship with these two stages in your child's development is. Remember, I said that our triggers are often rooted in our own childhood experiences, and you can listen to my podcast titled Triggers if you want to know more about this. So if you can link back your reaction to your toddler's tantrums or to your teen's craziness to your own experience. So if perhaps you had poor experiences at those ages, you now have an opportunity to break the cycle. It helps to remember that these two stages in your child are not about you. You're not a terrible, mean parent because you made your toddler wear shoes on the correct foot or held your teen to a curfew. The challenge is to hold boundaries with a firm but loving hand and not react to the testing of those boundaries with anger, fear, frustration, or sadness. Responding to your child with consistency, patience, warmth, and compassion as they work through these stages will help you find that the twos and the teens aren't so terrible at all. And you may discover also that you're really fully capable of being in touch with your empathetic self, despite what those stages were like when you were 2 or a teenager.